This is Jack Whitby of JCAD Pictures reviewing typical characters in thriller films. I've analysed 3 characters from 3 separate films. The first film is Misery, 1990, directed by Rob Reiner. The character I'm focusing on in Misery is Annie Wilkes, played by Kathryn Bates, who won an Oscar for Best Actress in a Leading Role for this piece in 1991. Annie Wilkes seems nice at first when she helps Paul Sheldon out of his crashed car in the snow when he skids off the road. We later find out that she has anger problems and has a short temper. It almost seems as if she has a split personality, as one moment she'll be nice and wants nothing more but to help Paul out of his miserable condition, and the next will turn psycho and want to harm him and won't let him leave the house. She also seems quite aggressive towards people when they accuse her of something they accuse her of something, whether she's done it or not, and gets very defensive. Now the reason I've chosen to analyse Annie Wilkes is because I like her character, as if it's almost having 2 characters in one. I also think she's very interesting with her speech, and her vocabulary is very unique and she is well spoken. It's probably because she reads a lot, in particular Paul Sheldon's Misery books, which she is a big fan of. However, she also speaks in a childish language, as in sometimes she can be caught saying things like, "You're just another lying old dirty birdie," which sounds very childish.
Thought you were good, Paul. But you're not good. You're just another lying old dirty birdie. And I don't think I better be around you for a while.
This contrasts with her normal speech. This conveys that she is like a child and never really grows up, which explains why she traps Paul in a house in the first place, as she may think it's alright to kidnap someone when really it is a very, very serious offence. I also like seeing the fact that at the beginning, Annie makes Paul and the audience feel safe from the snow, so she is the hero it seems at first, as she is the saviour of Paul from dying, which makes him feel comfortable in her house and the audience feel comfortable around her. Which implies the snow is the bad guy at the start of the film, whereas as the film progresses we see that Annie Wilkes is really the real villain and can be very dangerous towards Paul Sheldon. I would like to use this character in a film like mine, as it would allow me to make a big character as 2 emotions played, happy and angry. It would allow me to develop a nice villain for the film, as a split personality would work well, drawing the hero in with kind words, and the next minute turning on them in a spit of anger, trying to kill our hero, which could work very well for intensity in the film, as you will never know when the villain is going to turn and harm more people. Now, as I developed this, I realised that if we had a split personality in our film, it could work very well, because we could show to the audience early on that the villain actually has a split personality, and we can show this on other people, and as the film progresses, the hero falls for this split personality and is drew in by the nice words and kind gestures, and by the end of the film realising that he has got himself in very, very much danger. This is also a good thing because it will also make the audience feel comfortable with the villain, and it can really create a nice effect from the end of the film for a twist when we find out that the villain is actually a real villain. And the audience could notice from early on in the film, or we could expand this, making it think that he's a nice character, and in the end realising that he is very, very bad. The second film I've chosen to analyse is Pulp Fiction from 1994, directed by Quentin Tarantino. Now in Pulp Fiction, the person I've chosen to analyse is Jules Winnfield, played by Samuel L. Jackson, who was nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for this piece. Jules, with his partner, is a gangster hitman in the streets of LA. Jules is a religious man, as before he murders someone, he always recites Ezekiel 25:17, and he does so throughout the film. Jules believes in God and his miracles that God can perform, and in the film he believes that he witnesses one of God's miracles, when someone tries to shoot him and the bullets do not hit him. His partner, Vincent, believes that this is rubbish and does not believe in miracles. He dresses in a suit and gets very irritated at his partner when he does something wrong or someone doesn't answer his question. An example for this will be when he asks in an interrogation of a guy, and which he does not get an answer to and just gets the answer, "What?" Now if you watch this clip you can see that he gets very irritated by this.
What?
What country you from?
What?
What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what?
What?
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
I like what Samuel L. Jackson has done with Jules, as is the religious beliefs make his character different from the rest and gives him a scary way towards people when he mentions Ezekiel 25:17 before he kills a guy in the film. This changes his character from the rest, as he believing in God and miracles means he is a good guy, which I would like to use in my film to make the hero seem a bit more friendlier and make him seem more like a hero. At the same time though, I could use it to make him seem a bit psycho, like Jules is at times, which makes it very entertaining for the audience in the film. So though he is religious, sometimes he goes a bit psycho and gets, as I said, gets very irritated, which makes him seem that he is a very mean person. He's also quite a violent character when he has to do a job, but not as much as his partner Vincent Vega, who shot a guy in the face by accident, in which Jules was frustrated with him as the car got very messy. Now this contrasts the character, as Jules would have been much more careful if he was in Vincent's situation, and Vincent was very calm about the situation and didn't seem to care that much, whereas Jules was having a very big tantrum over it. He also has a good sense of humour when it comes to Vincent and when he is interrogating someone. This contrasts with him however, as he can also be very serious at times when something goes wrong, or in the end when he thinks God has spoke to him through a miracle, which gives a good depth to his character, as he can liven up a scene and or make a scene much more intense, which could be good in a thriller film. Now, as I've mentioned this, I would like to have a character like Jules in my thriller film, as I said, he is religious, and I think having religion for a character brings a good depth, and if we had it to our main hero, it can make him seem much more like a good guy and build his character, and can also be used as an intimidating method for striking fear into the hearts of the villain, and overall making his character more interesting to follow throughout the film. I also like the comedy feel, as it can work well in a very intense scene and make it seem a bit lighter and funny, which I was quite a fan of when I watched Pulp Fiction. I also like how serious he can be at times, which can make a scene very intense and keep the audience interested in what's going on screen. So these two contrast to each other, because a scene that can seem very serious can have a joke in it, which makes it seem a lot more happier and more intense, whereas a scene that's supposed to be happy can have a very intense feel to it when the joke is not taken as a joke. Now, Samuel L. Jackson's Jules Weatherfield is something I'm very interested in, as his character is very different from the other characters I analysed because of his religion, his faith, and how he handles certain situations, whether it be in a peaceful manner and try to talk things out, or if he just wants to shoot someone to get him out of his sight. The last film I chose to review was Sherlock Holmes, made in 2009 and was directed by Guy Ritchie. The character I was focusing on in Sherlock Holmes was none other than Sherlock Holmes, played by Robert Downey Jr., who won a Golden Globe for the best performance by an actor in a motion picture, comedy or musical. Sherlock is a crime detective who needs to stop Lord Blackwood from harming a large number of people and must use his detective skills to stop him. He works with his partner John Watson, who is a doctor, who too seem to form an unlikely alliance. He's a very intelligent man who uses his brains and skills when fighting rather than his strength to win. This makes it more interesting for the viewer, as most of the time the fight scenes go in slow motion to show his plan of defeating his enemy, and then the actual fight begins. He also gets very frustrated when he can't figure out a riddle and or if he knows he can't do anything to solve the situation. He always wants to work and gets depressed when there is no work for him to do, and loves it when he figures out a riddle and stops an enemy. Now this was very interesting to watch as I go back to the fighting scenes, because as they go in slow motion you get to see his thinking process of how he's going to handle the situation before the fight begins. It's also quite interesting to see him trying to work out a riddle and getting frustrated over it, but this completely contrasts when he figures out the riddle, as then he becomes much more happy and feels like he can take on the world. Now the reason I like Sherlock's character, as is in particular his fighting style, because it is very different to the other characters I've analysed. Instead of shooting someone or grabbing random objects to hurt somebody, he thinks of a strategy to defeat an enemy, whether it be twice as big as him or half his size. And this allows the audience to see his brain at work when he's fighting, which makes it more entertaining, and is something original that not many other films have, which is why I liked it so much. I also like his calm approach towards an intimidating situation, as this can make him seem more powerful and has a comedy feel to the character, making the audience like him that bit more and can relate to him. That's because when something very serious is at hand, he'll handle it very calmly and maybe throw in a joke or two, which makes the scene more or less funny and kind of makes it feel you need to calm down a bit when you're in a situation similar, and or if you're getting a little bit stressed. His intelligence also makes him an interesting character to follow and interrogate, because his thought process work is interesting to see, and you can see him come out of an answer to a riddle at hand, so you can see his thought process when trying to figure out a riddle, which makes it very interesting for the audience, and it also makes it interesting for the audience when they figure out how he solved that riddle, especially at the end of the film. I would like to use a character like Sherlock in my thriller film, because I like it to be very intelligent, as this can give more depth to a character and make it more interesting to follow, as the audience will be more involved with the thought process and how he handles certain situations, which can make it a whole lot better for the audience and make the film more interesting and more original compared to other films. I would also like to use how he uses his intelligence to fight in a battle, rather than just firing bullets or grabbing objects, unaware of the outcome, as he plans what the outcome will be and plans how to take on a character. I thought this was a genius idea, as I'd never seen it like it in another film, and seeing how he would handle fighting a guy rather than just running in and you don't know what the outcome. I thought it made it quite entertaining to watch, especially to see the punches in slow motion, which made it very entertaining for me. His calm approach to situations I would also like to use, as it can make it seem much more intense, as a character should be scared, but is not, and which contrasts to this, as if we were in that situation, we would be very, very scared, but this character will face it calmly and think about his strategy to get out of the situation. It can also make the scene very funny, which I like to see in a film. I like to see a bit of comedy in an intense scene, as